Hey guys, 4+ here with HTTL, bringing you a top lane guide for Wukong. I am going to be covering quite a lot of information in this video, so feel free to skip ahead to any bits that interest you, or just watch it all if you are awesome. I've noticed recently that I've seen maybe 3 Wukongs in the last few months, which surprised me, as I think he's really strong. At the moment, I feel he's underrated, so hopefully after watching this guide, you decide to go give him a try. First, I'll cover his strengths and weaknesses. His ultimate, Cyclone, is one of the best ultimates in the game. It not only offers damage, but also CC and movement speed. Even if you lose lane, you'll still be of use to your team if you land a nice Cyclone. His passive gives him defensive resistances depending on how many enemy champions near him. This bulks him up in a team fight, making him tankier with a potential 40 extra armor and magic resistance. His W, Decoy, offers a lot of juking potential. It is also excellent in the current meta, as it is often for top lane to be ganked by a level 2 jungler. This ability will help you navigate away from an early gank without burning your flash. If you use your Nimbus Strike on creeps, you can generate free attack speed to beat down on the tower, on top of using your Crushing Blow to reset the auto attack timer. Furthermore, your Crushing Blow will deal the damage to the tower, which puts the 1.1 attack damage scale to great use. Finally, Wukong can be built to do a lot of damage or offer a lot of control, basically your DPS versus tank style gameplay. This is adapted through masteries and itemization. He does have some weaknesses though, that hurt his early game. To start, he has a lot of mana issues, however I will tackle this in your masteries later. He lacks the sustain of other champions. This means after you run out of your health potions, you might be forced back to base, so stock up on them. And last, but not least, a lot of lanes will not be easy for you. You can outplay these lanes if you have the knowledge though. So now, moving on to lane matchups and harass. Wukong has a few lanes which will be able to shut him down. These are typically lane bullies. Nidalee, Pantheon and Yorick, in example, will be able to deny Wukong a lot of farm. They normally will have you hugging your tower, and even then they can poke you down and at worst force you out of lane. I recommend starting Cloth 5 part versus these lanes just because you need the extra health potions to stay in the lane. Without an early gank you will be bullied and just have to wait it out. Pick up an early Heart of Gold and opt for a more tanky build, which I'll talk about later. Now for the majority of other lanes, you will not have an easy lane phase, but you can still win them. Be careful of enemies who can outtrade you and then have the sustain to keep their lane advantage. There is not a single champion Wukong will directly counter in the lane phase alone, but once you get past this, you will offer a lot for your team. As Wukong, I recommend just trying to farm up, as you are one of the best late game bruisers in the league. You can harass with your Nimbus Strike, auto attack, Crushing Blow, auto attack, decoy combo, however try not to waste too much mana doing this. Also, you are burning your escape skill Decoy, which has an 18-second cooldown at level 1, making you vulnerable to ganks. There are 2 main ways that I like to itemize Wukong. I usually decide what I am going to do in the game lobby, and then re-evaluate the choice depending on how well the lane is going. The 2 options are a bruiser Wukong or a tank Wukong, and both work really well. To start, I always take the same runes on Wukong, which were attack damage marks and quints, flat armor seals, and flat magic resistance glyphs. I use these as they give you a nice boost to your defense and offense. I prefer attack damage to armor pen, as Wukong's AD scales are really strong. I also always take the same masteries on him. I opt for 9, 14, 7, which might sound a bit weird, but this offers you the most for him. Picking up the meditation from the utility tree will help you with your mana issues, and the 14 points in the defensive tree will grant you all the tankiness that you'll need. I don't think any of the mastery points past 14 in the defensive tree are too necessary for Wukong, however feel free to go 9, 21, 0 if you either disagree with this or don't feel comfortable losing a tiny bit of tankiness. For skill order, I recommend to prioritise R, Q, E, W, however take a point in decoy at level 1 or 2 if you think that you're going to be ganked early on. Finally, I always take Flash and Ignite on Wukong, as he has a lot of burst potential with his combo and his ultimate. Now for the choices, if you see that the enemy team has picked a top lane who you're not going to fare well against, in example Yorick, you should decide to go a tanky Wukong, whilst if you see that they're taking someone you could snowball off of, you should attempt to go for a bruiser Wukong build. Also, keep in mind that if your team lacks a tanky initiator, you can take up that role. During your lane phase, if you choose bruiser Wukong, you can still switch to the tanking build if you are losing your lane or simply not snowballing. Consider the tank build a fail-safe build which you can fall back onto if things aren't going your way. That doesn't mean the tank build is worse, the main difference is that bruiser Wukong will bring more damage and utility, whilst the tank build will bring more control. So what are these 2 itemization paths? First, let's discuss the tank Wukong itemization path. If you are against a lane in which you are going to get bullied by an AD champion such as Pantheon, I recommend starting Cloth 5 pots, otherwise always start with Boots 3 pots. Upgrade those boots later into Merc Treads unless the enemy team has literally no crowd control. Heart of Gold is a great item to pick up in the early lane phase for the nice chunk of health and gold generation. Later on you can upgrade this into a Randuin Zomin, which when synced with your Cyclone will offer a lot of control on the enemy team. Your first core item should be Frozen Mallet, as all the stats it offers benefit you. It will give you a nice amount of health, on top of some damage and that amazing 40% slow. After you have your Randwind's Omen, Frozen Mallet and tier 2 boots, your itemization should be contextual. Build around the enemy team and take the most optimal resistances. Even though it's a tanky build, I would recommend getting more of Malmortius as a magic resistance item, as if you can keep the enemy team within the full duration of your Cyclone, they will take a 4.8 AD scale worth of damage. As you are the tank, you are initiating the fights, the enemies will probably harm you, thus increasing your damage due to the Maul's passive. With this tank build, you will have very nice control, on top of health pool and resistances. Also, you will still deal quite a bit of damage due to Wukong's ability scales. For the Bruiser build, I recommend instead of getting the Heart of Gold, you should buy a couple of Doran's Blades. The boots are exactly the same. Your first main item will be Triforce, as it will help you snowball. For the parts of Triforce, I recommend first picking up Phage, then Sheen, and finishing with Azeel. If you're on your first back, you can afford Phage or double Doran's. I recommend the Phage, as it is basically 2 Doran's Blades, offering 2 less attack damage but 65 more total health and a chance to slow on hit. If you're snowballing, the next item you should pick up is Ghostblade. The stats it offers are great on top of the active. Ghostblade is an interesting item for Wukong as well, as you can either choose to speed up your ultimate or enhance your Nimbus Strike attack speed steroid to give you an insane burst of attack speed. You should know what you want to do before a teamfight starts, so that you can use your Ghostblade to its full advantage. Now you have your tier 2 boots with Ghostblade and Triforce, you will be dealing a lot of damage. From here you should itemize contextually. Bloodthirster and Last Whisper are great items if you want to deal more damage, however you can choose to build some resistances if you need them. The most optimal defensive item on Bruiser Wukong is Guardian's Angel, as it will give you some nice stats on top of punishing enemies for focusing you down. Finally, as Bruiser Wukong, try not to initiate if possible, as you don't want to take the first bulk of damage from the enemy team. Down both paths, I recommend to get a Phage, making this the best time to reconsider which build you are going to take, as depending on how you upgrade this item, it will put you on course down either route. Upgrading it to a Frozen Mallet will put you on route to become more tanky and have more control, whilst Triforce will give you more damage and utility. Moving on to teamfights, ganking and tips. One of the best things about Wukong is his ability to navigate a teamfight with his decoy. You should find ease in navigating to the enemy carry and dealing a lot of damage to them. As you can see, me and Civ find ourselves on the enemy AD carry in a teamfight. With my Frozen Mallet's constant slows and Civ's damage, we make short work of the enemy Ashe. Removing an enemy AD carry from a teamfight late game will be devastating to the enemy team. Another great aspect of Wukong is your ultimate is useful even if you are behind in the game. The ultimate strengthens further when synchronized with another controlling ultimate. Amumu's ultimate, Hecarim's ultimate, and Malphite's ultimate, when used either before or after your Cyclone, can control the enemy team for multiple seconds, rendering them useless. If the enemy can't deal damage as they are knocked up, you can turn around even some of the worst games. Keep in mind that Tenacity does not affect knockups, meaning you are guaranteed to cause some interruption. Land this on either the whole enemy team or a key target to shut them down, and you will have done great for your team. Starting in a brush, you can sneak into a lane using your decoy for invisibility to land a clean ultimate as you gank another lane. I recommend doing this if you have a stale lane phase and can easily sneak out to roam and gank mid. Your Crushing Blow will reduce the target's armor by 30% for 3 seconds. This scales really well into late game, and you should use this before using your ultimate for extra damage. You can use this ability on either the enemy tank to shred his armor, or on the enemy carry to make them even squishier. If you work with your team, you can Crushing Blow your AD carry's target, as this will almost give him a 3 Last Whispers worth of penetration. Finally, Wukong is Banshee's Veil's worst nightmare, as Nimbus Strike is an amazing skill to pop them. If you see the enemy carry pick up a Banshees, you should try to use your Nimbus Strike near them before a teamfight, to open them up to your teammates' control and damaging spells. To conclude, let's try and give Wukong a second chance. His late game is amazing, and he is rewarding and fun to play. Get past his mediocre lane phase, and you can become a great asset for your team. I consider Wukong one of my favourite top laners. He is no Aurelia, but he sure is fun.